You should be out partying when you are here. Thank you so much for being here. And I just want to say that this is truth as we speak them. This is the first open mic that is rotating, let me emphasize, a rotating open mic between Bronzeville and Chinatown, co-sponsored by 3 organizations. And so this is really important. What I really want to do is for everyone that we participate in each other's events. And sometimes I know everybody's busy. We don't go to other people's neighborhoods or what the community centers are doing. And so today, let's make it a habit. If you participate event here, make sure that after the event is over, you go around and look at the exhibit and appreciate the museum. And then next month, we're going to rotate to Bronzeville Historical Society, November 19th. And the same thing, I love going to and visiting community centers to learn about the history and also to know what people are doing, because our histories and stories are connected. We don't exist in isolation from one another, right? So I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Cheng, and I'm a storyteller and storytelling show producer. And so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to have Ben, who is the executive director for the museum, to talk about the museum briefly, and I'm going to have people matter to talk about their work, and I'm going to have Sherry. And you will see there's a reason why I want to bring all 3 of them together, because their work overlap with one another. So Ben?
Thank you, Ada. My name is Ben Lau. I am the executive director of this museum. I welcome you all to Chinatown, especially to our museum. Our museum is small, but it's beautiful. And our museum has been here since 2005, and thanks to our founders. And unfortunately, in 2008, we had a fire, and it destroyed some of our collections, but not all. Unfortunately, we have support from our community and from our peer museum, and then we reopened in 2010. This building is over 100 years old building. Formerly, it's a Gongyi, wholesale place, and when you have lived in Chinatown for decades, then you will know that in the past it is just an old warehouse-like building. But after the renovation, now you can see we have a very beautiful building right here. And our museum has 4 stories. And the first and the second stories are galleries. And this is the first floor gallery, and this is the place that we have our temporary exhibitions. And currently you can see this is our current temporary exhibition. It's called Attic Treasure 2. We had Attic Treasure 1 in the past, but this is the second one. And this exhibition opened in 2020, and it was supposed to last for 1 year, temporarily for 1 year, but because of the COVID, we extended this exhibition until this December. We will have a new temporary exhibition. It's called the Chinese American Cuisine, Challenges, Successes, and Stories. And I hope you can come back and take a look at the wonderful temporary exhibition. And on our second floor, we have 2 permanent exhibitions. One is called From the Great Wall to the Great Lakes. And the second one is My Chinatown, Stories from Within. And we have an object theater up there. And it has a 16-minute video. You cannot afford to miss. It was supposed to be oral history project produced by the Chicago History Museum, and they loaned that video to us, I think forever. I'm not sure if we have to return it. And if you can pay enough attention, you will find me in that video. You can also find my twin daughters in the video. Yes, so that is an oral history project, and this is the storytelling project, right? I have participated in this project before, and I have given my story, and I don't want to repeat it because it's kind of boring, for today. And thank you for coming, and also I have to thank, for the support of from our board members. So sitting over there is our board president, Edward Joe. And over there, standing over there, the beautiful lady in red, in the dress, is our immediate past president as well as our exhibition chair, Solan Moy. And we also have 2 associate board members here. Three. Oh, 3. I'm sorry. And this is Angela Lynn, and this is Consuela, and Rachel. Okay. I'm sorry. I was unaware of her. Okay, so I mentioned about, we have 2 stories, right? And 2 stories for the exhibitions. I don't know, the time's up. Okay. So, and I did mention about we have an extended exhibition of the Chinese American veterans. So if you have a chance, after this go up and take a look. And the 3rd floor is a collection, so you can have access. But you can go to our 4th floor. Actually, I have prepared some Chinese tea, some cookies, and a little bit mooncakes for you to enjoy after this event. If you can walk up there, because our elevator is out of service. And last but not least, I would like to ask for your collaboration. Please take all your drinks out at the reception, not on the floor. Please. Okay, that's it for me.
Thank you so much. I want to thank Ben and the Chinese American Museum of Chicago. We have been collaborating for a long time. And I want to invite either one of you, Angela or Consuela, to talk about your work, People Matter. I really, get to know these 2 young people. I can call you young people because I'm decades older. And I really admire their work, trying to bridge the gap, right, between Bronzeville and Chinatown and the Black and Asian community. And so I really appreciate the community work that they have been doing. So if one of you can briefly talk about your work, that would be great. Thank you.
Definitely. It's weird not having my co-president up here, but she's right there. But yeah, definitely. So we do a lot of race relations within Chinatown. We do unlearning anti-blackness classes. We also have conversations with community members around different things and different experiences that they may have had with around Black folks and stuff like that, and really unpacking the trauma that may have been there so they don't apply it to the larger group of Black people existing in the space, right? We have talk to Black community members around anti-Asian hate and any type of sentiments that comes from that, and we break it down to that. And then we also talk about, I teach classes about this, but I won't go too much into it. But we try to do that. We do a lot of narrative changing. We do a lot of conversations. We do a lot of healing work. We do it through our gardening programs and just exposing kids to one another and just letting them play with each other, and just have fun. We do it with community members, even over food and eating meals and stuff like that, and exchanging culture through that way too. So we do a lot of different things at our organization. And I don't know if my co-president has anything else to add, but yeah, so that's People Matter. We do great work, so thank you.
Absolutely. Both the museum and People Matter, both are doing great work, and so support them. And let's welcome Sherry William, who is the president of Bronzeville Historical Society, and I want her to say a few words, and we'll start with the mic.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Hey, Sherry. It's the most amazing, beautiful day outside, and I'm inside with amazing people whose stories I can't wait to hear. I'm Sherry Williams, and I'm the founder, that's what they told me, but I'm the founder of Bronzeville Black Chicago Historical Society. And I welcome each of you here. Dr. Ada and I have known each other and became sisters immediately. And this community is so important in the narrative of Bronzeville. My family moved here in 1942, just at 22nd and State Street, so not far from where we're at today. I just want to say I am pleased and happy that the energy in this room is high, and I look forward to hearing everyone's stories. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me double check. I have Karen, Sherry, Ed, and Tony. Who else wants to share a story but doesn't have a name on it yet?
Don't be shy.
All right, so this is what we're going to do. No one else? So this is what we're going to do. We're going to just by the order, and if we run through people, if you feel so inspired, I know sometimes people can be shy. If you feel inspired, feel free to step forward. Does that sound good?
Good plan.
All right, and I will give extra credit, whether you are in my class or not. All right, so before, why don't I kick off a story, and then we'll take turns to share. Does that sound good? Dear white woman, I regretted saying nothing to you, so I'm writing this letter. It was a good day that first Friday in October 2019, sunny and cool. It was around 2 p.m. I just finished presenting my gender-based violence workshop at a medical school at UIC. I had started this new job with the university in July 2019, and this workshop was the first major one I had to conduct with this new position. I was happy because I thought everything went well, so well that the student organizers told me that they wanted me to be back in spring. I was feeling proud standing in front of the medical school building entrance on Polk Street. When I ordered Lyft to return to my office, you were right there dropping off someone. I was elated that I didn't have to wait long. The day is really going my way, I thought to myself. I got into your car and said, "Thank you so much. How are you?" My standard greeting to a Lyft driver. You glanced at me through the mirror and said, "I'm good. Where are you from?" Just like that. We're sitting inches from each other, yet the chasm between us suddenly feels like 1,000 miles. I paused. Where are you from? Is one of my most dreaded questions. I was asked so very often before becoming a citizen in 2015. It was simple when I first arrived in this country from Taiwan as an international student back in 1991. I was foreign after all, with my stronger accent then and wearing clothing I brought from home. Yet with each passing year or decade, this question has become more complicated and layered. I can no longer answer with ease. That question was posed to me even after I became a citizen in May 2015. That same afternoon after the naturalization ceremony, and the days and the weeks and the months and the years afterwards, that question never stopped. Why would I have expected anything different? The certificate of naturalization, that piece of paper certifying my citizenship status, didn't change anyone's perception of me as someone from somewhere else. My status might have changed, but my face didn't. My accent wasn't that thick, so thick you will mistake me as foreign. You had no other reference than this face of mine, the only marker of difference, just like a million other faces from Asia. And when I hesitated, you asked, originally, like I didn't know what you were asking, like I didn't already have a script for this question, like I hadn't answered the same question over and over, like I hadn't said originally myself many times before, like my silence was my lack of understanding of your words or English. No, I was killing you softly in the back seat with my gaze filled with both sorrow and rage, calculating how much I should let your remark and therefore you shape the rest of my day or days after that. When I told you I was from Taiwan, you started talking about how your brother-in-law was working there and how he loved it. I asked you which city he was living on the island, you couldn't say. You simply went on and on about his beautiful experiences in Asia. I wanted to tell you, I don't care. I mean, do you even know the difference between Taiwan and Thailand? Because many Americans can't even distinguish these two countries, since the first part for these two words sounds exactly the same. I wanted to lecture you about profiling though. A softer type of profiling. The type of profiling that doesn't kill us, but it marks us as different. It tells us we don't belong. It is a form of racial profiling masked as cultural curiosity, often loved by both liberals and conservatives alike, pretending to be cosmopolitan. Yet culture is no substitute for race. You might ask, does it mean I can't ask this question at all? Of course, it is not that you can't ask it. It is how and when you ask the question. It is the context within which you ask it. Context is everything. Ask yourself, is this how you greet every human being you come across? On your drive, in a party, on the street, or do you direct this phrase to only people with certain facial features deemed as foreign and alien, or shall we say, exotic? There are millions of people with facial features similar to mine who were born in this country. This is the place they call home. They're not from somewhere else. They have always been here. By asking them that question, you're telling them that they don't fit the image of what an American should be. Where are you from marks someone as an outsider, outside of the norm and a standard against which you used to judge them. I'm the other against the white faces you count as American. Whether I was indeed born somewhere else is beside the point. I may be a citizen on paper, but it is still a long way to belong and to call this country home, even after 3 decades. Let me tell you a story. I once performed my solo Not Quite at Des Moines, Iowa. During the talkback, a middle-aged white woman vehemently disputed my comment about the racial implication of this phrase. She insisted that she could not be racist since her husband, sitting right next to her, was a Chinese man from Hong Kong. It was as if her physical proximity to a person of color could excuse or exonerate her of any bias or prejudice. She said that she was simply curious about other cultures, insisting on her good intentions. She wouldn't stop arguing until another white audience asked her to ponder this question. Who is in the rightful place to define racism? I believe you if you say you were simply trying to be friendly, except benevolent intentions don't always matter, especially if they lead to harmful impact. Not on you, but on me. It should have been a great day for me. Instead, I spent a 7-minute ride debating if I should get out of the car, if saving $5 was worth my dignity, if I should educate you as opposed to simply enjoying my existence, if I should trade dignity for convenience, if I should stay quiet while struggling with my own conscience and doubting if I did the right thing with my silence. All the energy that should have been reserved for my joy that day was wasted on you, where you were so oblivious to everything. I used to intervene until my energy was completely drained, until I no longer had joy in life. And then I realized this: not every fight should be my fight. I have to pick my battle just to preserve some sanity, so I can thrive, not just survive. So I sulked in the back seat and decided that I will write you a letter entitled, Dear White Woman, I consider this piece your compensation for a short ride with you. Best, if not best, either. So thank you so much. So we're going to do this. This is not a place I'm a storyteller. This is not a place to be perfect. I simply want you to be here to share your truth. And so I will give people, since we don't, first time, no more than 10 minutes. If you go, right, 7, 8 minutes is a good one. If you go over, it's about 9 minutes, I'll give you this sign. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's good.
Don't take it as I'm being rude, okay? All right. So why don't we start with Sherry? Does that sound good?
Okay. Person to follow. I don't have any prepared written notes. I'm just going to share with you all the story of what I felt in my emotions coming to this wonderful place. I can't help but recall that my family in 1942 arrived in Chicago, coming on the train from Mississippi, Indianola and Inverness, Mississippi to be exact. These faraway places hold not only the testimony of those who were enslaved in my family, but those who were chasing chickens and building dreams and hoping that they wouldn't have to pick cotton another year. But when they got here, of all the places to move in the city of Chicago, they moved to Chinatown. And so our communities have been parallel for a very long time. Just a block from here, there is Haynes School. My granddaughter goes there now. My mother attended that school in 1923. So everything that I saw when I drove just arriving here brought me to the remembrances that my family shared with me, what they treasured, what they saw was so important. And that is that we recognize ourselves as one. My first job was in a Chinese restaurant. And with my ridiculous, silly behavior, my always wanting to be the person who brought the laughter in the room, I would mock those who I worked for. Well, they saw it as my being very immature. But could you imagine looking back at my behavior now and saying, why? I would pick the orders up right at the beginning of the front of the store. And so someone pick, oh, I'm getting a large chicken fried rice and a large shrimp egg foo young. And I would swing the door open. And the people in the kitchen would be, just screaming at me. But the sons and daughters of the family I worked for, they would be bent over laughing because they knew that I was just playing. But the elders, they realized that something's really wrong with that girl. Because I had no restrictions and no understanding that that could be such an insult. It could be looked upon as something that was the most disrespectful thing to do. Needless to say, I worked that job from October 17, 1973, till I decided to be a teen mother in 1978. Well, they offered me no shame in my being an unwed mother. And they embraced me and bought gifts for my daughter, who will now be 45 years old in February. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. You know, there's a reason why we want to do this event. You know, you're working with different communities, and to be honest, thank you so much for being here. Just people are coming in, so this is really a great turnout for our first event. You know, in working with different communities, it is so important to capture elder stories. That sometimes, you know, I don't talk to my parents a lot. But it's so important to really talk to elders, right, and to learn about the history. But also, what's equally important to hear stories from young people, right? Because there's generational differences. And even if we don't live in each other's life, there's that continuity in terms of history. And so I want people to really think about this, as how do we gather together, cross-racially, but also cross-generationally, to share stories with one another. Our next storyteller, Karen Wichita, my apology. Okay, I'm gonna have you come over. how to do this? Is there a way to put that in?
All right.
Okay,
Is that okay?
yes. So Carrie, you're going to have to speak a little bit louder.
Okay, sure. Hi, my name is Carolyn Chima, and I'm actually here to get over my fear of speaking, which is why I'm here. But I was so taken by Ada here, who's enthusiastic and wonderful, that I decided to show up today and talk a little bit about me. So, I'm Japanese, not Chinese, and I talked to a couple of people here who know my brother. My brother married a Chinese girl, and he lives in Chinatown. And Betty was Miss Chinatown, and I believe the daughter, also Kelly, was Miss Chinatown. And
Wow.
so they're pretty active in this community. So I grew up in Clark and Division, and most people don't know this story, and I plan to write it, which is why I'm here with Ada. Clark and Division was actually practically 100% Japanese at one time. My mother was in a concentration camp in Manzanar, California. And again, she was a citizen and put into a concentration camp. And the Japanese, when they went back to California, they were not welcome. They were told to go away. People wouldn't rent to them, they wouldn't hire them in jobs. So they ended up in a place called Chicago, which they knew nothing about. The weather was rotten. Clark and Division, most people don't know, was run by mobsters. So as a kid, I grew up in Clark and Division unmolested because the mobsters took care of me. They ran all the juke joints, the street joints, the bowling alley, the movie theaters. They were in control. And they also hired the Japanese. They were not discriminating against the Japanese. So I grew up with Japanese mobsters that actually worked for the syndicate. And some of them, if you follow the story of mobsters, one of them was quite famous, wore a hood on his head, and actually testified against the mobsters. So his name was Joe Ito. So if you look it up, he was a pretty notorious mobster. So I grew up in Clark and Division. I got to go to a good grammar school, which was Ogden. And Ogden was extremely liberal because the people who ran all the bars were Jewish people. There were people who were liberal. They were against the discrimination against minorities. So they actually embraced the Japanese, so got along very well. So my parents actually owned a dry cleaners called Kurt and Ruth Cleaners. My father was Kurt, my mother was Ruth. The customers were quite eclectic that came to the shop. Some of them were lobsters, some of them were entertainers because of a place called Mr. Kelly's in Rush Street, so a lot of people lived in that neighborhood. Actually funded Ogden School a lot. That was a very good school because the entertainers came in and funded after-school activities. So my parents worked long hours, and my grandmother, who was still living with us, only spoke Japanese, but everybody down the street, all the shop owners, the groceries, everybody spoke Japanese. So it's like basically living in California to her. So my mother worked in the dry cleaners because that's what she knew. My father had a master's degree, and because again he was Japanese, he did not go into education like his peers. With a master's degree in education, my father was working in a candy factory. So Curtis Candy, which made Baby Ruth, all the candy bars you're familiar with, that's where my parents met. At a candy factory where they hired the Japanese. So I don't know how much time I've got to go here.
Keep going.
Keep going, okay. So my parents saved up enough money, so we managed to move out of Clark and Division, which was a great place to grow up, except we lived in a one-room apartment, and it was getting a little crowded. So she had another child, which is my brother, and I talked to someone here that knows my brother, who's a musician. And so we needed more space. So the Japanese are starting to gradually move out of Clark and Division. Some of them had enough money to buy places, and others just moved to bigger apartments. So we had to move to a place where people spoke Japanese because of my grandmother. So we moved into a 3-story building in Uptown, which was racially very diverse. In fact, there were Native Americans, Appalachian white, there were Hispanic, and there were black people, which turns out were originally slaves to the rich people that used to live in Uptown. That's why Uptown has the Aragon Ballroom and all those fabulous theaters. At one time, there was a very ritzy neighborhood. So I think the only thing that's still there that's operating is perhaps the Green Mill. That's again where all the mobsters had entertainers. So in Uptown, part of the reason I'm here is someone just yelled at me the other day who is Japanese and told me I wasn't Japanese enough. And it's probably true, since I don't speak fluent Japanese. I can understand it, but I don't speak it fluently. And I wasn't, despite the fact my grandmother went to a Buddhist temple, I was not involved in the Buddhist religion. And also, I went to school with eclectic, different nationalities. So to me, I didn't look at people as, oh, you're Japanese, and oh, you're white, and oh, you're black. I grew up with all kinds of different people, and I don't choose my friends by their nationalities or their religion. I choose my friends by the people I like.
Yes. That's power.
Yes, absolutely. So we moved to Uptown, and I went to Sen High School. And believe it or not, I was there at the time they actually integrated Sen High School. They bused in black kids from the South Side. So we had all the nationalities, including kids that were bused in to that high school. Yes, 1 minute? Okay. So quickly, I actually got involved in politics at that point. There was an organization called the Uptown People's Planning Coalition. And it was an organization that had the flag. It was white, yellow, black, brown, and red, representing Uptown. So at that point, I entered the Peace Corps and became part of VISTA. And we were trying to save Uptown from just turning into back to what it was before, an overpriced neighborhood. And we were planning on working on housing. So what was interesting at the time was we had VISTA lawyers, we had VISTA architects, and we were actually trying to build reasonable housing in Uptown. It was a big struggle, and it didn't exactly work, but it was an exciting time to live in Uptown. So I think I'm going to end it at that point. Thank you.
Can we give parents a round of applause? Can I ask a question? How many of you are shy?
Me?
Yeah. That you don't want to share because you're shy?
I'm very sorry. Yeah.
Everyone has stories to tell because I hear all the time, I don't have stories. No, you do. Right? You do. Everybody does. And so I want people to really, the first time, how do you feel?
Oh, that was shy than I thought it was going to be, but because you make me feel comfortable. I like you on a Zoom call, so that's why I'm here.
Nice.
So thank you for doing this, and I hope you inspire whoever said they're shy. I hope if you feel inspired, come share. This is not about being perfect, but really it's about sharing stories with one another. So if you feel inspired, step up and tell story. I know I have a student there. Andre, do you want to share something? Okay. And then who else would like to share? There are a few people who you want to share as well. Perfect. Okay, hold on. Now I have tons of people who want to share. Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to have Andre. And what's your name?
Felicia Levi.
Perfect. And I'll have you. And then who else? And then Consuela. And then you. That sounds good. Andre, come on up.
Which one I want to tell today? I've got one about me discovering my Chinese-ness through eating dim sum with my father. And then I've got another one that's actually more towards theater. And it's about me exploring my Asian-ness through theater and the lack thereof. So, theater! Let's go!
Alright.
Theater? Alright. So I'm making this one up on the fly, but yeah.
No problem. I'll fail you. Don't worry.
Maybe redeem me if it's bad. Yeah, give me a nice round of applause. I've always really wanted to do theater, do acting. I never saw myself on stage though. The funny thing is, the one thing that made me want to act was watching Wonder Woman. Like of all movies to watch, it was Wonder Woman that really made me want to act. So I eventually started acting, and I was reading plays, I was doing Shakespeare, which was really boring, but I never saw anything that reflected my identity. It was almost like I had to really, really look and ask like 10 people to find one thing, and then even if there was that one thing, it wouldn't fit me well enough. But fortunately, I'm from San Francisco, and there's like a lot of really talented Asian playwrights. So I went to this one production called The Paper Dreams of Harry Cheng. Do you guys know about the Angel Island immigration?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So it was about a person who came over as a paper son, and his difficulty, firstly, getting through the Angel Island border, or the Angel Island immigration center, and then also assimilating and having generational trauma throughout his generations in the country. And that was the only play that I saw live. But I never saw musicals, and I've always wanted to be able to sing. I'm still kind of rough on that, but there's something so emotional and so true about singing, and vulnerable even. So I figure if I can portray Asian-ness on stage with music, that's me right there. That's game. So I only found one musical that was actually good. It's called Allegiance, and it's about the Japanese internment. But again, I'm Chinese, not Japanese, so there's difficulty there. All the other ones, like Miss Saigon, The King and I, they always portray they always portray stereotypes. For example, the temptress, the person who gets you pregnant and then you're left with a problem, or the funny Asian laborer, or some sort of thing that is not us or me. So now I'm proud to say that for my final project in Professor Cheng's class, I'm going to be writing a musical theater song based on Angel Island. I'm from San Francisco. I worked at a summer camp on Angel Island. I have photos there. I visited the museum, so I'm hoping to write a narrative song about a person around my age who's immigrated through Angel Island and is having trouble getting through the center. Some things I hope to discuss are the fact that the interviews they do are extremely, extremely rigorous and unfair. They ask the detainees questions like, how many steps was it from your front door to your porch? What was the material of the floor under your bed? There were questions like, how many houses were in your town? What street did your grandmother live on? Things that are absurd that you would have to study and prepare for in order to know. So that's what I want to write a song about. And Professor Cheng has allowed me to do so. I'm working with a Northwestern piano student, and I'm gonna have him accompany me on the song. So yeah, that's
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And maybe, I know Ben, a while ago, like several years ago, there was an exhibit about paper song, right? Yeah. Maybe we can have Andre and some of the inspired students we can have an event here, right, with Northwestern.
We still have a permanent exhibit on paper songs.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Maybe we can arrange to have Andre sing, right?
Oh,
right.
Lord.
All right. So just want to double check with everybody. Let me ask you this this question while we're gathering here. Can you relate to any of the stories shared so far?
Yes.
Can you raise your hand? Almost every stories? Ah, we don't need to live each other's lives. But all of us have some emotion about being excluded, not fitting in, discrimination, searching for identity, searching for home, right? Dismissed, disregarded. And that's how we put ourselves in other people's shoes, right? When we listen to stories, we don't say, I agree or disagree with you. When we say that, we're trying to show I'm right, you're wrong. But when we listen to stories, we empathize, we sympathize, we understand, we develop compassion. No argument, no judgment, we just listen. Sounds good? All right. Felicia, you're next.
Is this good?
Yes, good. Okay, so I wasn't going to perform, but then I was inspired by everybody. I wasn't like all the way prepared, so I'm gonna be like reading from like a page, a notebook, and my phone. We're just gonna make it work. So this is, and then I was like, is this even a story? But then like when she did hers, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do it. So basically I wrote this piece because people look at me and they think like I don't have any problems and everything is just so easy for me. So I wrote this piece to explain that it's not, you know. My anxiety, I'd imagine, would be a whisper with no name that tells me all my dreams will end in flames. And every time I get ready to rest, anxiety will take the smoke from the fire and place it in my chest. And as I inhale, the smoke billows up from my chest to my neck, like my neck is a chimney. And when I exhale, I feel relieved, but then I panic and I have to remind me, breathing too quickly only makes this process work. So yes, I have to remind myself how to breathe sometimes. I have to remind myself success isn't always rise and grind. Sometimes it's resting and knowing everything will work out fine. And then I take myself to the first time I felt like I was running out of time. It was the day after my 16th birthday. My mom died at 43 suddenly in her sleep, and it occurred to me, we are all stopwatches. And as much as we watch our diets and surroundings, we never know when God's thumb is going to press the button. And then anything would trigger me. I could feel the wind brush across my face, and it would feel like God's thumb is in the air, and it was about to happen. And I would start to question, did I do everything I was supposed to? Did I make amends with, apologize to, or recognize who I was supposed to? Did I recognize who I was? Did I think I was a good person just because someone said it, or did I feel it? I know I talk a lot, but did I live it? And what is living? If I believe chasing dreams means anything, then I have to remind myself, living is recognizing those moments when dreams transform into reality. Living is being present in the joys and being confident even in calamity. So when anxiety comes to me, I take her on my lap, swallow her with memories of my accomplishments, sing her lullabies of all the times I used my discernment, and after she's asleep, I lay her in the bassinet made of my silhouette, and I whisper, I know it's scary being the 16-year-old you's wildest dream, but that stopwatch, it ain't stopped yet. My depression, I'd imagine, would be bright and soft, because I was a child when I met depression, and if it was dark and gloomy, I would have just ran off. I felt safe in my home and with my immediate family, but when I interacted with my friends and strangers, depression would chaperone me, providing me with triggers so I know how I'm supposed to act, reminding me that shining too brightly will make others feel attacked. But when my mom died, I inherited depression like a coat of arms, and that is when I felt the gentleness and compassion
that can only be felt when in depression's arms. See, it's easy to say that depression is a beast, but it doesn't feel that way when I'm at my lowest and I'm partaking in a feast. You call it eating my emotions. I call it being in control. You call it partaking in risky behavior, toying with my life. I call it testing the strength of my soul. See, depression is very multidimensional because it wants to suppress the suppression of who I am. It wants me to suppress the truth. It wants me to experience great loss and run off when I know that I am Ruth. Victory cannot be without struggle. Even though my struggle looks like a glittery cloak made of the best fabric used in fashion, that doesn't mean that depression doesn't grip my motivation. It doesn't mean it doesn't silence my voice. It doesn't mean it doesn't blind me to look at endless possibilities and still feel like I have no choice. And that's why I know I'm successful. I have more riches than monetary wealth because every day I wake up, I learn to conquer myself. Some days are better than others. Some days I feel like I can't take anymore. Sometimes it's because it's one of me and it's 3 kids. Sometimes I feel like I'm a kid that doesn't have her mother anymore. And even though I want to see her again, I don't let depression tell me to knock on heaven's door. I know it's not my place to help the Grim Reaper with his assignment, but that is why I pray fervently, Yahweh, if there's any joy left in my life, help me find it. Move my feet, help me find it. Open my eyes so I can see it. Remind me that I don't have to dislocate my purpose to reach it. And give me the strength to rest until I believe it. Reassure me that if I ask, I shall receive it. Show me how I'm doing really good and that I've come so far. That even if I'm feeling invincible or unable to fail, or if I willingly make my bed in hell, there you are. Because you said you'll never leave me. So please tell me why I feel so alone. Help me process the trauma of my childhood. I want to be healed and make decisions like I'm grown. I believe you're good, and I want to taste and see. I know I'm not perfect, your goodness, I don't deserve it, but please don't give up on me. Sometimes I feel like I'm worthy. Sometimes I feel like I'm not enough. How is it that I can move mountains one moment and then get stuck doing simple stuff like being nice to myself? When I make a mistake, being compassionate instead of criticizing myself and being like, see, that's what you get. So many people love me and adore me, but I'm much more than what they see. But maybe they see the fullness of who I am, so I should take a page out of their book and love myself in entirety.
It was amazing. How many of you can relate to that? How many of you don't talk about mental health issues?
Taboo.
Deep down, we're all humans. What you just did, and for a lot of the storytellers, are universal experiences through your own particular details. That's how we connect. And I mean, a lot of the things that you said, I can relate so much. Thank you. Can we give Alicia a round? And I also want people to kind of see how you can share your story through poetic poems. You can share your story through narrative, or theater, or dance, or music. We can share stories, tell stories in many forms. I would like to invite you. What's your name?
Chazelle. He said he was gonna come up here with me too.
That's okay.
So I'm Chazelle. I'm from the west side of Chicago. West side. So I've been doing music for probably since I was like 16, really. And I just kept going with it. You know, I've been doing that, content creation, youth programming, and I'm also a clinical counseling student. So this song that I want to do, I'm just going to say the verses. It's about just my community, and it's about my emotions tied to my community. Come on, hold my hand. Okay, as long as you don't do that. But yeah, it's about my community, and then just about my emotions and how I keep everything together and how they kind of like conflict. So for no further ado, I'm gonna say it for y'all. Tired of the corrupt government. I'm sorry. 1 second, please. Give me 1 second.
Don't believe. Are you still a Muslim? Yes, that's not what you believe in brotherhood. Complete brotherhood of all people. But at the same time, I believe in this brotherhood. I don't believe in forcing my desire for brotherhood upon those who are willing to accept it. I think the Christians said they also believe in brotherhood. You said that. I said they believe in friends.
Tired of corrupt government. It's time to take back the gods that we are. I know it's hard because they take almost everything we start. Let's unite, exchange resources, learn each other's perspectives, grow and trade skills free at least until we settle. Never do each other wrong and serve one God. And soon we have our very own heaven in the sky. It's kind of hard not to address the hate when the love lacking, or when you traumatized or woke up from your rapture. Sometimes I feel like I never had love. Old friends say I changed, family won't say what's up. So busy on the grind trying to lift my family up. Being down to earth don't really seem fun. Sometimes I feel like Malcolm with the gun. Sometimes I feel like Malcolm on the rug. And then the chorus come in. The next part is, it go, pow, pow, I ponder killing them would be foul. Shit, they do it to us. Why I gotta be godly now? Is it conspiracy or really is it prophecy? Don't know. So I'm praying and propheting. Working hard. Gotta get your paper. Oh, that's it. I'm sorry, I got really nervous. Shit, they do it to us. Why I gotta be godly now? Is it conspiracy or really is it prophecy? Don't know. So I'm praying and propheting. Gotta get your paper, working hard and whopping shit. They took from us for too many years. Why I profit share? They said we gotta die for heaven, yeah. Black man, you saying you don't want your heaven here? Black man, what you saying? You wanna keep living in fear, or you rather put them devils in the rear? What you saying? You think them problems just gonna magically disappear, or you ready to get on the front end and win? And that's it.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think sometimes we live within our own community. It's human nature that we stay with, folks that are, familiar, and we don't venture out. We don't understand each other's histories. And I think it's really important for us to really get to know each other. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Gosela? And then after that, Ed, does that sound good? Anyone else? Oh, you want to share, sir? Perfect. Do you mind? It's Gosela, and then after, what's your name?
MJ.
Very good. Gosela. Woo-hoo.
Okay, I was inspired by other people. Not really a poet, not a storyteller. I try to be. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so this is something that's been on my mind a lot, and I guess I would just say it as a story. I was listening to James Baldwin the other day and watching him talk about, get interviewed in a video, and he said this, which goes into a lot of work I do, that we were integrated on the plantation. And that stuck with me for a long time, right? Because I think a lot of times when we think about stuff, even the work I do today, when it comes to race relations, a lot of times people are like, if we just come together, if we just in each other's spaces, but we are in each other's spaces. I can walk down the street from my house and go to, like, see Asian American people there. I can go down the street and I see Arab people there. I can see Indian Americans there, and we still not community, right? And I think that just makes me think about it too. It's more than just being in each other's presence, you know? It's more than just like sitting next to someone. It's like, do you have a relationship with people? Do you even see someone as a person? I looked at this study today and I had it read it out to me. And it said that basically when white people see black people, they see them as objects. And that's the reason why a lot of white folks don't walk out the way when you're on the same street. And I said, what? It makes sense. But then also it's just like, we're not even reaching person levels for you. Now that's not every white person, of course, but they did a study, and I think that it stuck with me too, that when we're talking about building community with one another, when we're talking about bridging race relations, that it goes beyond just not having, it goes beyond just like being next to one another. It's about the relationships you build. It's about community you build. It's about seeing people as family. And I think that that's the thing too, that I feel like a lot of times, even in my experience, that people feel like I'm weird about, like, you know, because I think that for me, like my family, like people I consider my family don't look like me, you know? Like my friends are all like multiracial, like my adults and my mentors that came in and protected me and watched over me, they're like older Chinese elders, or they're like Latinx, you know, white Latinx people or indigenous Latinx folks, right? And so even with that, in my own experience, right, that it's so weird that people are like, oh, that's your experience? That's weird. When it's just like community members coming together to protect a young child and build and pour into them, right? That it didn't matter what race that child was. I don't know. I think that just sticks with me. Because it's like, I don't know, like Jane Paul said, we're integrated on the plantation. Even when our oppression, we were next to each other. It brings me to stories about like, you know, the Mississippi Delta and all the Chinese Americans that were there while black people were working the fields and the sharecropping. And black people used those stores as places to buy commerce, right? To do work on the plantations for white people. Like, we've always been integrated. Have we always been family? And I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you.
So important. You know, I think something you mentioned that's really important is that oftentimes we say, as long as I'm not going to engage in racism against someone, then it's okay, right? So we assume that there's such a thing as non-racist. You're either anti-racist or you're racist. And people forget there's also our relationship with white supremacy, right? And so if you stay silent, and I think that's really what it is. It's not so much about, it's really how does your silence make you complicit and sustain the status quo. And if you are silent about injustice, it help uphold this white supremacy, right? And so it's less about whether you engage in racist acts or not. It's really to what extent you benefit from the system. And that's something that I struggle with. People say, I'm not racist. I don't do this and that. But yet they don't speak up when they have to pay a price. And most often time, I'm the idiot who will say things, then I pay the price. And so for me, that's a form less about whether you engage in acts, but really about how your silence upholds the system. So thank you for mentioning that. Thank you, that's so important. Thank you. Come on. And I just want to say, for those of you who are recording, and then making sure that you sign a consent form. Who has the form?
Sue.
Yes.
Sulan has the form.
Sulan, and just make sure you sign that. So because we're going to post that on the website. Okay.
Hello, everybody.
How y'all doing today? All is well, that's well. I love that. My name is MJ Royale. I am from the west side of Chicago, west side. And I am a performance artist. My main thing is rapping, but I also sing, act, voice act, and I do poetry. And I also write my own scripts. And I'm also part of an initiative here in Chicago, based in Bronzeville, called MC School. It's a conglomerate of 39 artists, also rap artists, that come together to serve as peace ambassadors within our communities in Chicago and elsewhere in the nation. So one thing I'm gonna do right now is just read the room with you all. When you all wake up in the morning and you go outside, do you feel like you have to put on a face? Like you have to put on a face with your boss, or you have to put on a face with your coworker, or your mom, or your dad, or your friends even. Like, you constantly have to put on different faces to make it through in the day. But when you take your face off, and it's 2 a.m., what does conversations with yourself sound like? What does it look like?
Come on, girl.
So I want to express myself with you guys and sharing how my 2 a.m. looks like.
Come on.
I wake up to the same shit every single day. Put on the face and wonder which character I'ma play. Do I play the hyper looking to ball out? Or do I blast the music in my ears to tune the world out? Constantly fumbling to follow with myself, cause I'm reminded daily that I'm a freaking mess. Put my hair in a bun with a suit and call myself Nadine, the pro that my mama like, cause she's confident and pristine. Only to realize this isn't truly my persona. In the end of hating this feeling, so I don't want to be bothered accordingly. How your majesty translates the corporate deities. The real meaning of my name shot the bullet with anxiety. No one understands, no one truly understands. That's why I be flying away into my imaginary land at 2 a.m. I like to keep the mind at peace and magical. My magic wand traces the line that paint the scripture of my life and told. This is what it all comes down to. The world on my shoulders, I just get to break through. This is what it all comes down to. At 2 a.m. free your mind, this what that backstage do. This is what it all comes down to. This is what it all comes down to, down to, down to, hey, down to, down to, down to, hey, 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 hey. Thank you all so much. And I want to give a shout out to Ms. Cheng and the Chinese American Museum of Chicago. Thank you for this wonderful event, and y'all have a good one.
Oh my God, I feel so inspired. I want to sing. But I know you were going to just leave after I started to open my mouth. I can't sing. So I believe you say you want to share?
Yeah.
Come on. I am so happy. I just have to say, like an hour and a half ago, I was worried that we're not going to fail the time. And trust me, before the event, I was telling everybody, we're going to prepare to share a story. This is unbelievable. Can we give ourselves a round of applause? Unbelievable. And thank you so much, everybody, to bring the music, rap, and just narrative and poetry. It just makes this place so vibrant. Thank you so much. Come on.
Is it okay that I take this on?
Yes.
Hi, I totally wasn't going to do this, but Professor Cheng has absolutely inspired me. So thank you so much for giving me the space to kind of work out some thoughts that I've been having. Something I noticed, it was imperceptible at first almost. Having graduated, I noticed that people don't really come up to me to, you know, say konnichiwa, even though I'm Chinese, ask me where I'm from, you know. Some guy once stopped me and asked me in earnest if I was trying to find Chinatown, which I was at that time, but I didn't want to tell him that. And I realized that the reason that it stopped is because I met the love of my life, the only white guy sitting in the room. Sorry, dude, I love you. He's great. And I didn't realize that kind of a side effect of finding the love of my life was also that strangers now recognize my claim to this country. Which is like, what the fuck? Especially because he's British. Like, he's like legally the alien here. Right? Yeah. So I've been kind of grappling with my own sense of identity. I moved here when I was 6 from China. And when I came here, I didn't speak a lick of English. And I feel like I came a week after 9/11, so like people really wanted you to assimilate at that point. Like it was very rapid how much they wanted you to be American. And so I feel like that's what kind of happened to me, because as soon as I came in, my teacher gave me this list of words. And I just randomly picked from that list, and that's how I became Jessie for the next 8 years. Which is... Thank you. Right? And it didn't, I don't know, it's a strange thing, isn't it, assimilation? Because what was that teacher thinking? Like, did it make any sense to give me that list when I didn't speak English, you know? Like, assimilation is often just framed so much as a choice, but what choice is there really when I don't even know what the rules are, what the rule book really is? And I don't know, I struggled with that when I got to high school, and I kind of realized, kind of fucked up. And that's when I decided to pick a new name for myself. And my last name is Sun, and I went to this, okay, so my full name is Yi-Sing Sun. I went to this like white Quaker high school. Like the only thing that was diverse was their daddy's investment portfolio. So I felt like they weren't totally ready for Yi-Sing, which is spelled Y-X-I-N, and people are always like Yixin, Yixin, anyways. So I went with Sunny, which I think it, reflecting on it, it was my choice. You know, Sunny I think fits me well, I love to laugh, and the only downside is people often, like, when they ask for a reservation, I'll give my name Sunny, and then I'll ask for my last name, and then I'll say Sunny Sun, and I sound like a cartoon. But that's okay, that's really it. And I don't know, I think I've just been reflecting more and more on what it means to construct your identity, and construct your identity when it's so tied to wanting to belong, but then wanting to belong is so tied to assimilation. And I don't have a good answer, and I'm figuring it out on the spot. And the good news is that I have a lovely partner. We just picked out our new last name that we've created together. His last name is Bear Park, and so we're going to become the Sun Bears. He's actually conveniently wearing our shirt, which we branded. And so that is the story of me in the midst of trying to figure out who I am.
Oh, thank you so much. Beautiful love story. I just realized, I'm at the age where I just feel like, wow, now no one deserves me. So I just be alone because I love myself so much. But now that after the story, I thought, maybe I'll pick someone. All right, our final storyteller, I believe Angela wanted to say something because can you believe it, we're almost 3 o'clock? Yeah. Oh my God, isn't this wonderful? To just share stories, exchange our heart, critiques, and I think we have more things in common than we're different. And Angela, welcome.
Hey everyone, so I'm I'm gonna do something inspired by Andrew, so I have two stories that you can choose from, and they're both like kind of spontaneous, but one is the story of how I came to Chinatown to do like race relations work, and the other story is just kind of like an angstier thing that I was thinking about, and it's kind of actually a little bit about like our internal issues among like the yellow American community, like Asian immigrants. So the first one I mentioned story one, second one story two. So who wants to do story one? Who wants to do okay, story two. People like the angst. Okay. And I didn't prepare this at all, and I do also want to say this is just my own personal experience, so you know, take it as you will, and yeah, you know, just take that. So the other day I was talking to one of my college friends who I hadn't talked to in a long time. She's like a brown woman, and she basically, you know, she was going through a lot of life changes, and I was telling her about a lot of my work, which, you know, like racial justice all the time, every day, doing like a lot of work. And she was basically like, oh, I feel jealous of you. And I mean, that really, you know, rubbed me the wrong way, because, you know, we do racial justice work, and I don't want my other women of color to be jealous of me. So I really want to tell her, like, do not be jealous of me. Actually, you should be happy for me, and you should be encouraging me, because I'm working towards our liberation together, so that you don't have to do as much work. And actually, you know, she had just broken up for like this like relationship with this white guy, actually, and had just gone into another relationship with another white guy. And I guess like for me, and I was talking to her about it, and how, you know, she felt like her culture, you know, her family comes from like a long lineage of like labor workers, people who were fighting against the empire to get their rights as workers. And how she was talking about how she, you know, she had like the spirituality, and this is all really important to her. But, you know, her previous boyfriend, who she was with for a really long time, he could appreciate it, but he didn't necessarily have access to that lineage, you know, to that lineage of like working and fighting against empire. Actually, his background was empire. It was like genocide, things like that. That's what was in his bloodline. And so, you know, even though they were like family, they were really close, like they couldn't necessarily talk about these things together. And it just made me think about, you know, like as a yellow woman, you know, growing up, we were always told that like white men were basically the ideal, they were like the perfect thing to achieve. And you know, growing up, I definitely aspired to that as well. But you know, when you look at the history of like why that's the case, it's like histories of like, just for Chinese history, like importing Chinese men into the US to be labor forces, and not allowing any yellow women to come here because they didn't want them to be prostitutes, and they didn't want them to make families, and they just wanted the labor, to extract the labor, and then for people to leave. And when you look at even like the history, the first Chinese American woman to step foot on the US was Afang Moy, and she was brought here, basically trafficked here when she was like 12, 13 years old, and she was displayed as an exhibit because of her bound feet. And you know, this is like the first Chinese woman that people like laid their eyes on, was like you know, a very exotic display, like a display that was somewhat sexualized, somewhat, you know, orientalized, all these things. And so the perception of yellow women and yellow men have always been different. And even if you look at it like statistics today, it's like so many people I know who are women of color, it's like, or so many people who are yellow, so many women. It's like a lot of, I think a lot of people in our community, in like my, you know, Chinese community, it's like, you know, like with the women and men, it's like the women don't really find the men attractive, or, you know, things like that. And I mean, I just feel like I feel like it speaks to like a longer history of how we have kind of like basically been like colonized in our minds to not find each other like beautiful, and to not, you know, to find like, to appreciate like our people. And I'm not saying that, of course, you have to, like do, date, like marry, whatever, within your own race. But I just feel like there's these issues of like us not finding ourselves beautiful, whether it's the men or the women or whoever, within our own communities. And that's something that is like so heartbreaking to me. And so I just wanted to, that's just like some thoughts that I've had is, like my friend, I really hope for happiness, and I want her to find someone who is able to appreciate her roots and to really connect it on a soul level, whatever, color they may be, but to really be able to access that with each other and not just see it as something that they can appreciate, but not like truly understand. And I really hope that for, like all the people of color to just like love our own communities and love ourselves.
Ooh. That's such an important message because we all have internalized racism. And beauty standard, the beauty image and how we see ourselves is one way that we manifest the internalization of racism. Can people do this with me? You say, I am beautiful.
I am beautiful. I am beautiful.
Come on. I'm not convinced. You're hot. I am beautiful. I am beautiful. This is wonderful. We're at the end of our event. Thank you everybody for being here. And next month, thank you so much. Can we give ourselves a round of applause? Different communities come to see the museum. So once we're done with the event, feel free to take a look at the exhibit. And also Ben, can you believe it? He has cookies and water upstairs. The elevator unfortunately broke, so you have to walk up. But feel free to go to the 4th floor if you need water. And thank you everybody for being here. Next month, we're going to Bronzeville Historical Society in November 19th. Let's do this and let's continue. Hopefully this will be a permanent project. Does that sound good?
Yeah.